My name is Stephanie Morgan. I'm a physical therapist at Mercy St. Charles Hospital. I've been a PT for 8 years and focusing a lot in amputee gait training, strengthening for the past 5 or 6 years. When my patients come from Perry Prosthetics, they are comfortable with the process. The clinicians that work with them, no matter who has worked with them, they feel like the questions are getting answered. They're comfortable calling them and sharing information, and even to the point where they can share personal information. And I think that's what makes a huge difference when developing a relationship, because it is a relationship that is for their entire life. As soon as they come in, I've already got information, usually that's been faxed over from them, that's telling me, you know, Mrs. Smith is coming in, and then they schedule the appointment so that they can combine the first physical therapy visit with the initial drop-off of the prosthetic. Excuse me, the prosthetist comes in, and we literally will spend the whole session working on donning and doffing the prosthesis and getting the patient up, just the initial. It's not, and a lot of times I will hold off on my physical therapy and we work together to just make sure that the prosthetist has an understanding, and the patient and we all have the same understanding about where the patient is. Get a fitting schedule started, and the prosthetist asks them if they are comfortable with their prosthesis, how it feels. And it's nice because then if there's an issue, immediately they make an appointment and we're ready to go. I think the Ampy Fitness Center is a fabulous idea. I mean, like, I probably can't emphasize it enough, because so many of my patients, when they're discharged from physical therapy, they need some type of physical activity. Just because they've had the amputation, does not mean they stop exercising. They have a whole body. They need to exercise. They need to be fit and well and wellness. And I've also had several conversations. They are either frightened of typical gym memberships or places. They're not comfortable. They feel, and if you really think about it, not too many places do you see people with disabilities having some place to go. And in an environment like this, where it's comfortable, it's warm, it's inviting, people, I mean, they work with people with amputations all the time. So you coming in here with an issue is nothing to them. And they have the equipment, and it's comfortable, you know, it's safe, it's people just really, it's going to be a huge asset to anyone that has an amputation to be able to come over here and just have a workout. So when patients come in from Perry Prosthetics, they have already been educated a lot. So they make therapy, I would say, quicker. I can jump right into the specifics of the physiology on what we're doing. We need to strengthen this. We need to work on stabilizing this, instead of me having to backtrack and then move them up. So we can immediately, they come to see me, they've already had that education, and we can just jump right into it, and then it just makes the process a whole lot quicker. Typically when I have a new patient that comes in who has a diagnosis of an amputation, I pretty much try to see where they are at, and that means mentally, physically, everything, because all those components play into the rehabilitation process, and it impacts what I can get them to do for therapy. So we talk about their family setting. For the most part, really, I try to see if they have an understanding of the rehabilitation process. Do they understand when they have had their leg amputation, you know, when are they going to get their staples or stitches out? You know, what's the next process? Do they just put a leg on? Do they understand how things go? And the majority of the time, patients have no clue. Their family, they don't know, and they just are kind of up in the air because they're just not sure. They don't have that understanding yet because they've either not had it or they've had conflicting information. Most of the time, the patients are just kind of hungry for information. A big, huge thing that I've noticed when I have patients that come in from Perry Prosthetics is I don't have to go through that, really. We literally get straight to the nitty-gritty. They've been educated on the process. a general timeline. Everyone's timeline is different, but they get a general timeline of how things can go, what they can expect during each stage, how each stage is going to affect them, not only personally, but also their family. And they take a lot of effort in educating the patient on anything from phantom pains to shoes, to, you know, how to get, you know, clothes, how to put the prosthetic on. If they haven't had their prosthetic yet, what they can expect as far as volume changes. I mean, there's just, they've been educated, and they actually set me up to be able to just jump right into the theory. And that we're working together, especially when the prosthetists typically will come to the sessions. If we have a question, they'll come. The initial dropping off of the prosthetic, they'll come. We go through walking in the parallel bars together. We kind of brainstorm with the patient if problems come up, if they're having any issues. And it kind of puts things on like a warp speed. I mean, it makes it so much easier. We just kind of jump to it, go through it, and it's just great. It makes things so much easier. The walk-in clinics they're set up in a way that I think is it's very helpful for each individual person, because you start out with stretches, and then we will have everyone, you know, they kind of gather around, and then we see how each person is doing and where they are, whether they're walking with a cane, whether they're walking with a walker, crutches. And then you kind of break up into different individual sessions, because there's always some type of clinician there, whether it be even a PT student, PTA student, a physical therapist, a prosthetist. Someone is there to try to work individually, at least a little bit of time, so people can feel like they're getting one-on-one. Actually, I think one of the biggest things is the camaraderie. I have had patients come to the walk-in clinic who were maybe a little down, or maybe not very motivated, or just blah. They come to the walk-in clinic, and watching them during the clinic is amazing. Like, they're just like looking all over the place, and they're fascinated by the fact that you've got people at different levels. But one of the biggest things that I like about it is it allows people to come at their own pace. So sometimes people aren't comfortable, and they just come and they'll just kind of sit back. And they don't have to participate, but yet they'll jump in at this part. Like, they don't want to get down and stretch, but yet they want to see how they're walking, so they'll go into I don't want to say the lineup, but just how each person kind of does their little runway walk. And then they feel confident because other people have done it for them. And then they get to see, oh my gosh, there's a gentleman who's 95 years old who's a bilateral amputee above the knee, and he just walked, and I've been sitting here complaining. I've literally had patients say that, and it just motivates the mess out of them, and they want, like, if he can do it, then I can do it. And then they come back to my therapy sessions, and they are doing it better. And I was like, oh wow, this is kind of like, I hadn't expected that. I mean, I just hadn't expected any of it, and it was huge to watch, and I was happy because it made therapy like so much better, because now what I have been saying for a couple sessions, they immediately just picked up just from watching and observing, and then getting up and demonstrating or trying to do it themselves, because we always have people working with each of the patients, and they get up, they try it, and they're like, oh, so then they come back to me for therapy, and it's completely different.